Season 6, Episode 44, number 262 of the Decoded Podcast. Chris, how are you doing this morning?
Fine gray Saturday.
It is a gray Saturday. When I opened my eyes this morning for the first time, I looked out the window and the colors were beautiful. It was reddish, orangish, or reddish, orange-ish,
Yep.
yellowish, okay? And I'm like, "Oh, this is nice." The eyes closed. Then when they opened again, all I saw was gray. I'm like, oh, what happened to the nice palette of colors that were there? The warm
Mhm.
colors are gone and the gray has entered. I get it though. I get it. You know, I'm the before you jump, I'm the old man who, when it looks like it's going to rain outside, I'm
Mhm.
actually excited because
You're about your grass.
it waters the lawn.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'll take that.
So today, I don't know if that's the same. Oh, it doesn't even show. Look at that, all that glow, eh?
Mm,
Yeah. I don't even know how you would get around that. Is it because of the glare of that?
just come right into the. Oh
No.
shoot, bro! All I see is white.
Yeah, I know.
It's
That's not what
crazy.
it's saying.
Okay.
It's definitely not. Yeah, that's interesting. That's an interesting technical conundrum. What happens if I bring that down? Does that help? Oh,
Yes. Okay.
it's
It's the
still
weather
the
report.
the weather report. Yeah, when I bring the brightness down. So 80% chance of rain today. 30% that it's going to happen in the next 36 minutes. So, and it's got the little lightning sign and yeah. So, that's where we're trending. That's where we're trending.
Are you planning on getting out and finding yourself a nice little nook somewhere in town and taking pictures while this is happening?
Yes, that could happen. I was hoping I didn't get to today's supposed to be a long run day.
Ah,
So, um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. And I don't want to do it on the treadmill. I want to be outdoors for the remainder of the season. That's my hope. Um,
is
so
there okay, what's keeping you from running in the rain? Are you worried you might hurt yourself? Like I know I'm going to go out on a limb here and say I know it's not the actual rain that's keeping you from out there in the rain.
I think part of it is I'm in my brain. Um, I have enough complications with recovery and process of just doing the run in the first place that I'm trying to keep it pure. I have nothing specifically against running in the rain. Like it's not like I don't know my regimen well enough to know how it's going to negatively impact my performance. I don't know that. It's more of a preference. It is a preference. I've never enjoyed actually like doing exercise outside in the rain. I don't mind being in the rain. It just doesn't. It doesn't jive for me, right? So probably the way it'll roll, or the way I'll roll with it, is for I'll watch for the break because I need about an hour and a half of a window. So around 3, I could. Looks like around 3 o'clock. Again, if I'm leaning on the weather report.
Right, because we don't know. I mean,
No.
we look up and we see what we see, but we don't really know. And they think they know. It's one of the best jobs in the world to be a weather reporter because if you're wrong, you're still getting paid.
Yeah,
Um,
it's true.
right?
Yeah.
Still getting paid.
Totally true. But yeah, so I think I have a couple little bits of things to do today. I'm working on cleaning up a room upstairs, a room in our house. Um, I have to do line work. So for the
Line
play,
work?
line work,
Oh,
like for yeah, like I work
gotcha.
on my lines for the play I'm doing. Um, I did want to take some photos, and I have another piece that I'm working on, so I want to spend some time there.
That's awesome.
Hmm
Cambridge Rib Fest is here, and I want to go to Cambridge Rib Fest.
What's the
Um,
weather? What's the projections in your neck of
it's
the woods?
not good.
Yeah.
It's not good. But I mean, again, if I need to put on a raincoat and go buy ribs and bring them home, it's not a problem.
Mhm.
In fact, there'll probably be less people there, so I won't be fighting crowds to get to my ribs.
Right.
And it's funny because my family, like I've been reminding them, hey, it's Rib Fest, and they're like, uh-huh. And they're like, whatever. Like they know I'll just go and get stuff and come home.
Right. Yeah,
They'll know, right? It's not like, oh,
they know you.
we're not going to Rib Fest because it's raining. No, no, Dad's gonna go get ribs. Um, it'll be an adventure. It'll be an adventure. Um, Bro, I love listening to the items that you'd like to get to today, or the things you could do if you choose to. I have a list as well, but I've been choosing lately to just put the list aside and
Mhm.
sit on my rear end and do things that really, and I've been enjoying it. This whole talk of time and leisure. I've been enjoying it. I've been enjoying just, hey, Dad, what are you doing? "Oh, I'm going to be in the family room. The TV's going to be on. I'm going to have the laptop in front of me too, and I'll probably have Twitter rolling in the on the mobile, which is on the other side of me. So it's literally I'm surrounded by technology, and I'm just kind of taking it in, soaking it up. But well, thank God I got photos off my phone because I had way too many photos and videos on my phone. I cleaned that up the other day, and as you know, I'm working on the back end of Decoded Podcast
Mhm.
to clean up the mess that I've created with the backlog of audio for people who'd rather listen to this podcast than watch it. I'm working on that. Yeah, it's just chilling. I'm chilling. I'm totally enjoying this being off work for an extended period of time.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say that, the I'm trying to maximize, I think I'm trying to maximize the, my outdoor time, let's say. I'm starting to think of it as like that's the stuff that I need to be mindful of because I know in, 4 weeks I don't get that outdoor time anymore. The other day I went out to some forest near us. I went out there and I took some photos, grabbed a coffee while I was there, just kind of sat, did a little bit of writing before I came back home. Was I think I told you yesterday about I told you how I went for a paddle with my buddy Ryan.
Yes, how'd that go?
It was good. It was good. I really appreciated this conversation that he started. This topic. He's craving to dig into his creative side. So he's a teacher as well. He wants to dig into his creative side, and he was talking about he's a drummer. That's his thing, music. And it was interesting to listen to him talk about it because I said to him one point, I said, I see why you've stopped, but I don't see what's stopping you. So it's like this with his creativity, there was things that kind of like we'll just I mean, you can call them life changes. So you don't get to sort of tap into necessarily how you don't get whatever patterns of creativity you pursue. I would argue that if you are considering the creative process around whatever creative product you make, I would say that there's an inherent flexibility that's necessary in the creative process just to be creative. You have to find your version of flexibility. And so I said to him, I said, in that, why are you so rigid in how you have to perform your creative? Because I didn't really because again, if you told me you can't get the drone up in the air because your kid has hockey, well, that's something that can stop you, but it's momentary, right? Like that's not a thing that actually stops you from that creative. He had stacked up a bunch of stuff that was like that. It actually didn't his operating system. It is his operating system. It doesn't actually change his operating system such that he can't drum anymore. And I put that to him, and I'm like, so what is it? What's actually stopping you? And then there were no more excuses. Like, we kind of got in this weird space of there were just other discussions that he hadn't had yet with spouse and family as far as trying to be able to access that creative side, but was kind of anchoring it in these momentary stops and sort of looking at those momentary stops as actual, like a wall, as opposed to just tripping points, like constantly tripping just to get to it. And I told him, I said, you, for me, a lot of times, in order to experience the freedom that I enjoy in my creativity, I have to really focus on scheduling that time. Like, I really have to be smart about when I sometimes I can schedule ahead of time. Sometimes I just have to be opportunistic, as in, now's the time to go read that book. Now's the time to go do a drawing. Now's the time to go do the writing. Of course, my life and my obligations interrupt my day in the same way my creativity does. Whatever I think, like even this morning waking up, my day as I perceived it is going to be interrupted by the rain. So then I shift. Okay, so then that run that I could have done right after our pod, I'll see if I can shift it to 3 or 4 o'clock. Um, what's interesting about that is that it's not, if I tactically shift it to 3 or 4 o'clock, I'm no longer in inspiration mode. I'm more on skill mode, because then I kind of say, like, if right now in the middle of the pod, you thought to yourself, I want to go on the treadmill. Right now's the moment to go on the treadmill. Well, you and I have said this. Yes to one thing is no to another. So then you're at a fork in the road. Can I go do the treadmill and actually still do the pod at the same time? Can I bring my tech over? Can we continue from there? Right. So I get that kind of scarcity. But I also say, like, if you were really inspired right now to get up and go for a 1K run in the middle of the pod, I think there's a really fascinating thing that does to my brain. Like, that this idea that even something that is as enjoyable as doing this pod and meeting up with you on Saturday, there could be something that could interrupt that as well. So this idea of what the day could be, I know you and I are flexible with the podcast. I think there's also something really fascinating about how even in the enjoyment and pursuing this creative endeavor, it keeps you from doing other things as well. These little kind of stopping points. So let me just bring it back to Ryan, as he's telling me that these things that he perceives have kept him from accessing his creative. I just put it back to him. I said, I can see how that would stop, but I don't really understand why you haven't found other spaces to kind of like work on that stuff. Like, I'm not hearing it. And I said the words, I said, if I'm being kind of like your critical friend, I'll only agree with you so much before I kind of go give you a sort of a counterpoint to thinking. Um, and some of that push has led to a little bit of an uncomfortable space, just as there's conversations that haven't yet been had in the household, as in how can life adjust slightly so that he's in a better position to be able to do some creative stuff. Sometimes that has to do with like how you sort of delineation of jobs, like how the workday goes. He's talking about, one of his best moments of the day is driving home after work and driving to work. He said, I really like that. He said, I can listen to the music I want to. I can sort of think about my own thoughts. Like, he just really enjoys that kind of recharge moment. He says, as soon as I get to school and as soon as I get to back home again, now there's external expectations. And I said, okay. I said, well, how efficient are you with your time to be able to maximize that travel time? He says, what do you mean? I'm like, well, do you get up early enough to be able to, increase that travel time? Like, if you really do enjoy your commute to work, why not get up 30 minutes earlier? You couldn't give yourself 10, 15 minutes more time of, in the car or at your job. I'm like, is there a way that you can sort of get your day done at your job 10 minutes faster? Are you really working at the efficiency thing to create opportunity space for you to enjoy that creative activity? Um, and what I'll just close on, I think that's kind of a fascination space for me right now, is that I'm not on autopilot as I go through autopilot's valuable. But if I'm willing to complain like I don't have time to do my writing, then that would be I would only go there if I were actually completely optimized in my work time. As in the work is just like I can't find any more efficiencies in the way that I do all the expected demands of my day. I can't manage those anymore. And I'm fascinated, I think, with people that not that are hyper scheduled, but that are just kind of dedicated to living more intentionally, like through the steps through the day. Um, I think at the end of it, it was great. What was the cool thing is we're out paddleboarding while we're having this conversation. And you had said, the spaces in your morning where you get inspiration, you know. Some people it's like in the bathroom, other people it's in the forest, some people it's like, just walking around the track. I will tell you, just sitting out in the middle of a lake and you could sort of just feel just sort of like that rocking out on the water. And it was a gorgeous day yesterday, right? Like yesterday was a gorgeous day. Around here was gorgeous. And that really does strip the distraction from conversations. And we have some really great convos just out there, like either sitting in the middle of the lake or just kind of paddling at a slow pace or standing on the paddle boards, like just kind of just out in the middle of the water. So I think at the end of it, what was kind of cool is that at the end of it, I think he sort of was going back into his thinking about his life. Like, how do I find some efficiencies? How can I be creative and just trying to find some efficiencies to get back to whatever level of creativity he's looking for? And I only get to hang out with him every couple weeks, so it'll be cool to reconnect with him in a week or two and see if he's actioned it. And I think I might push him a little bit. Like, come on, dude. You were talking about this was something that you wanted. This was something you want. Like, really, why didn't you make it happen? That was rambling. That was rambling. What do I bring it back to? There's nothing about sort of trying to live a creative life that can really happen without some sort of a backbone of logistics. And I think that backbone of logistics, the number of voices that look at the backbone, I think the better of at including voices in the backbone, which is like my family. In some ways, it's you. Um, I can free up the time to be creative. Like I know exactly when I can. I know exactly the moments where it seems like I need to be in the podcast, but I actually can't get up and go walk on the treadmill. It's like an evaluation, right? I think that would actually be pretty awesome if you just got up and left. And then afterwards you message me like, yo, I'm going to work out on the treadmill. I was inspired to work out and it has to happen now.
There's a respect there. I hold some respect for people that operate that way,
Hmm.
that are just so they're just so different that way. Um, their passion for something, um, you pay a price. You and I both know. So when you say no to one thing, you're saying yes to something else. And when you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. That also goes with your passion and commitment to whatever it is you're doing. And when people dig in and go really hard on something that they're chasing, it looks crazy to everybody else because it looks like it's a one track mind. And in most cases it is. Like you're pretty deep in something when you say, like, I've done this with my wife. I've said to her, okay, I'll give you an example that looks crazy to everybody in my family, but it's really not crazy. So it's summertime, right? I'm floating around the house, I'm doing all kinds of things. And in my house, it's become somewhat normal for us to be walking around with headphones on. So like while we're doing whatever task A or B, we're listening to a podcast, or I'm
Like people
listening.
in your family?
Yeah, like if my wife is working on something in the basement, she'll have
Yeah,
her headphones on and she'll be listening to a podcast, and she'll say, we announce to each other, I've got my headphones on,
right.
FYI. I've taken it a step forward or a notch up and said, uh, I'm in Twitter Spaces and I'm listening to them like podcasts, but if something hits me and I feel like I need to speak, I'm like, if you hear me talking, I'm talking in a Twitter space or I'm talking in a polo to Chris or Joe or Tyler. Like it's and they look at you. They're like, "What? What do you mean?" I'm like, if you just you walk into the family room and the TV's on, I'm on the laptop and I'm talking into my mic, this is what I'm doing. And there it's that you get that look like that's weird. And I'm like, yeah, it is weird, but it's not weird when you're in that space, you're in these moments and they become part of your operating system. You get what I'm saying? This is a small example of it's like running in the rain. I'm telling you right
Mhm.
now, my family would think I would be crazy to go walk or run in the rain. But if I said to them, listen, and I don't even try to convince them anymore. I just say to them, this is what I do every day. Every day I walk for this many hours or this many kilometers. This is part of what I do to help me feel good, to help me build whatever.
Mhm.
And I don't care if it's raining. It needs to get done. It's going to get done. It's part of my plan. It's going to lead me to my goals, right? And to anybody who's not living in that bubble, they look at you funny. I've done it to my friends and other people. I try not to anymore because I get it. You have to become sometimes, um, you have to become so focused on your goal to get there that other things need to drop. And you and I have talked about this before that what we try not to do is to drop the most important things like family, like work, but you massage the family. You say to them, "Listen, this is what I'm doing and this is why I'm doing it." And for me, and I'm sure it's the same for you, once my family understands, it's okay because it makes sense to them. They're in their brain, there are connections, and they're like, "Oh, I get it now." So I'll walk around with one earbud in one ear and then the other one kind of hanging over so I can still hear what's happening around me. But every now and again, I'll just turn on the polo and I'll be like, "Yo, Chris," and I'll just start telling you something. And they now know, "Oh, I know what Dad's doing." He he's either responding to somebody in a space or he's talking to one of his buddies about something. Um Whereas because there's always that, who are you talking to? What are you doing? As you're talking to somebody, it's like, whoa, back off for a second. But there is no backing off because they're like in the moment. They're like, no,
Mhm.
no, I want to know now what you're doing. I'm like, I'm in the middle of something. Yeah, that's over now. I just say, you might hear me talking in the other room. This is who I'm talking to. This is what I'm doing. And it's funny because I was in a Twitter space last night, and I was in listening mode. I wasn't interested in talking. I was just listening, like a podcast. My son comes in and goes, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm listening to people talk about this topic." He's like, "Oh, are you going to talk?" I'm like, "Nah, I'm just listening." And it's just funny because it's like, "Why don't you want to talk?" It's like, I got nothing to say. I'm listening. I'm treating this like a podcast, but they almost expect me now to be jumping in and saying things and doing things.
Mhm.
Anyway, all that to say that when you want to enter into a new flow, I believe at some point, if you're really serious about making gains in a particular area, you're going to have to dive deeper. And when you dive deeper, other things have to be put aside.
Mhm. Yeah.
And for me, I do my best to inform my family of this is what I'm doing, this is my goal. Yes, I am going to go walk in the rain. Yes, I am going to do this for an hour, right? Yes, I am going to not eat that today because of whatever. Like, they're like, you're crazy. Yes, if that's what you want to call it, that's fine. But I need to make gains, no matter what that is. My creative, my exercise. Like, like since it's so gray, I'm actually craving spending more time exercising today.
Mm.
I'm I don't know what it is. I just look outside and I'm like, yeah, I don't really like what that's looking like. So maybe a little bit longer on the treadmill, lift a little bit more weights, take my time. I'm in no rush. Ribfest isn't going anywhere till tomorrow night. I can get that whenever I want. Oh, I hear the thunder thundering over here. Anyway, sometimes you got to dig deep, and the people around you don't understand. Do we have a duty to do we have a duty to help them understand, or do we not? What do you think of that, Chris? Do we have a duty? I mean, oh, I'm hamstringing you. As a husband and a father, do we have a duty to talk to the family about some of the things we do on the side, and that it's how to maneuver with us while we're doing those things on the side?
It's interesting because that wasn't the duty that I was vibing on. I can speak to that, but that wasn't the duty when you asked that question around, do we have a duty? My brain kind of jumped ahead to a different version of what that duty is. And I think my brain was craving more. What I wanted to say was we have a duty to demonstrate flexibility in how we go about our day. Like that's the duty, right? And I think it's kind of funny. I don't know if I haven't had the I mean I have had the family kind of walk in. They're like if they walk into the room and you're sort of mid sentence and you maybe have headphones in or you got your phone up, your whatever the gesture is, you're obviously showing that you're communicating with someone on digitally on the other end. And people have kind of walked in, they're like, they're like, who are you talking to? Like they're stage whispering. But I haven't had the specific heads up conversation like you have. I don't know what's fascinating about that to me, but there's something fascinating about that. Maybe it's just the whole I appreciate that you're um giving them fair warning, kind of giving them fair warning that you kind of need space, giving them fair warning that, if they walk in and they're loud, that's not really useful to you. Maybe you're giving them fair warning that if they walk in and they're talking, that they become a participant in that conversation. Um, but I dig it. I think it is, it's a funny, like, I don't know if I feel it's necessary to have that combo, but I get it. And I think that I think the philosophically, I think it's kind of cool just to sort of embrace that people in the house, it's such a new way of thinking, eh? That, like, I think back to when I was a kid and in my parents' house, there was a telephone table. So the phone was on the wall and there was a spot in our kitchen. And I can remember we had one phone in the house. We had the one phone in the house, and that phone in the kitchen was where you sat if you're talking on the phone. I don't think any of us ever stood talking on the phone. Like imagine that, eh? None of us actually stood there by the phone. If you were on the phone, you were sitting down, and that was the universal indicator that you were communicating with someone outside the house. And the table, it looked like a little it looked like a little kid's desk, but like a wooden desk, but the chair didn't face into the desk. It faced sideways. And off to the side here was the desk. And inside to the right was like the phone book. And that's all that was in there. Just the phone book. So it was like a straight back wooden chair with the desk on the side, a sidecar, right? And if you came in the kitchen, of course, as you're coming down the stairs into the kitchen, you could hear that someone was on the phone. You could suss that out. But you also knew that whoever was on the phone would be anchored at that table and not walking around the room. Like there was no confusion in the communication signals. And whether that's, right, it's not a right or wrong kind of a thing, whether that's your experience or not. I think all of us have these these built-in conditions of how we communicate, right? You sort of this is, and I mean, this was for many people, including myself. This was also part of the growing pains of when students started to bring mobile phones into the classroom. The exact same growing pains, because in our minds, mobile phones were luxury items, and the mobile phones were toys, not tools, like all that kind of cachet that came along with it. So I love this. I love you kind of sparked me up thinking about like the rules of communication, how different they are. And having to find new ways to talk about it in a new way.
I want to add that me telling my family what I'm doing, oh, that was a big one. Me telling the family what I'm doing is not just for them to be, not for them to yield to me, but also for me to yield to them. Like, because
Mhm.
I am in their space sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like I so when you and I have done spaces, I've said to them, guys, I'm gonna be in the living room and I'm going to be talking the whole time, just so you know. And you and I talked about this. Part of my shtick with that was it was gonna happen. It was gonna happen as my family life was happening around me. Not like
Mhm.
our podcast. Our podcast, I'm in this room. Everybody in this house knows that Saturday mornings at around this time, I'm gonna be in here talking to you for an hour or more, whatever, an hour and change or less. They know that. So they don't come in here. And when
Mhm.
they do come in here, I usually give them my attention because they're in here and they usually don't come in here. So it's like what's happening that I need to know. That's the first thing. With the podcasts and with the spaces and me talking to you and whoever else on Polo, it's I might walk into the kitchen and be grabbing something to eat out of the fridge or sitting at the island while you're watching a TV show or you're reading a book or whatever, and you don't look at me like, "Dad, what are you doing?" Like I'm reading or I'm doing this. It's like a it's the two-way street. It's like this is what I'm going to be doing. So if you see me doing this and you don't like it, just kind of look at me and wave me off. Or um, if you come into the space I'm in, whatever space that is, and I'm talking, you know what I'm doing. Like it's just it that works in my house for me. But it works in my house for me because of the way I've operated all these years having not done that, which then causes more problems. So if I need to
Mhm.
make an important phone call and I because in the olden days it was the phone call, it wasn't a Marco Polo and it wasn't talking in a space. I would leave the room and I'd go to a quiet room and I'd pick up a phone and I make the call. But then it's like, where's dad?
Well, you're going to the telephone table.
Sure, but
Like, just
that
just
version.
conceptually. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Conceptually, I'm going to telephone table. Now now that's like because then they start to wonder what's he doing, dad, what are you doing, as I'm on the phone with like an important call to a parent or to a colleague or whatever the case may be. Now it's hilarious. Now we'll say to each other, like my wife will say, I'm going to be upstairs in the master bedroom and I'm making a call to so and so, just so you know. Okay. So I know that, when the kids say, "Where's mom?" I'm like, "She's in our room, but she's on the phone. She's on a very important call." So when she comes out, deal with her. Until then, don't go in there. She's at the telephone table, which happens to be, on our bed with her pen and paper out in front of her and her on her cell phone talking to whoever she's talking to. And we do that with parent phone calls. Um, well, we do that with a lot of things. Yesterday, we went out for breakfast as a family yesterday morning. And as a family, I'm pretty good at putting my phone down and putting it aside. And everybody in this family knows I like to be checking the socials and I'm still
Mhm.
communicating with people while I'm with other people. Everybody knows that here in my family.
Yep.
But I made a point while we're sitting at um the table eating breakfast, I'm not going to be checking my phone.
Mhm.
But my wife had said to me in the car, "Can you please take care of whatever?" And I'm like, "Yes." So when we got to the restaurant, we were seated, we got our waters, we did our order. I said to the family, "I need to send an email right now And so I'm out of this conversation for the next 2 to 4 minutes, like, "Don't talk to me." And my wife, it was about what we talked about in the car. I was dealing with what I said I was gonna do, and I said, like, unapologetically, "Leave me out of the conversation. I'm doing this now." And I don't do that too much. "Oh, yeah, the sky is just black." This would be amazing drone footage. I'd probably lose my drone, but that's okay. I'm ready to give it up for this. But anyway, I've become unapologetic at certain times for certain things, and I try not to do it all the time because then it takes away its power. But yesterday at breakfast, I said, "I'm not talking to any of you for the next 3, 4 minutes. I got to send this email that your mom and I talked about. I'm doing my duty here." And then they're like, "Okay, Dad." I just do it and then I put it away. That happens sometimes. Sometimes it's like I'll do that when I'm not with the family. It wasn't one of those. It was, I'm doing this now, because it's going to save me from, like, that open tab in my brain is going to stay open until this happens. And that's going to take power away and memory from my operating system, which I should be spending on you. So let me just close the tab now, and then I can have the family tab open and it can have full power. Um, but I'm also older and wiser. I'd like to call myself wiser. And now I just know how to roll. "Hey, I'm doing this at this time." They laugh at me when I say to them, "Remind me that I'm doing a podcast at this time, or remind me when we do book club." Hey, because that's the thing. I've been up here doing book club with you guys, and I can hear them yelling downstairs, "Where's Dad? We need Dad for this." And I'm like, "For God's sake, I told all of you I'm going to be in the computer room in the book club," which is kind of like, unless the house is on fire, you don't need to talk to me. I'm doing the book club thing, right? Um, but if I were just to disappear and go to the book club, then it's like fair game. They can bust the door down, be like, "Where are you? What are you doing? Mom needs this," or "Mom's asking a question," or "Can you help me with this?" or whatever the case may be. So I try now. I'm like, "Hey, this is holy cow, it's something out there, bro. Like,
Yours is coming in.
it's here and it's storming."
I just got a text from my kids saying that they're riding down to the farmer's market.
Oh, is
To
that good or
which
bad?
I don't know, bro. I guess that's relative to whatever response I get back from. I don't know. I gave them
Like,
a
I mean,
thumbs up.
is the
I gave
weather
them
okay?
when I came downstairs. It was gray outside, but it wasn't intense and storming. They said if it's raining, they'll come back. I'm imagining they're gonna get there and they're gonna hunker down and not be able to come back. Um, we'll see. We'll see. Let's see. Did they put it into? Okay, they put it into our family chat. So Karen hasn't responded yet. So we'll see. We'll see. The the your description of your family looking for me kind of coupled with me thinking back on what our telephone table was like. If I walked in the room or you came down into the kitchen, which is a common space, right? And oh, we're frozen. You're frozen. We're still taping though. That's interesting. You're totally frozen on screen right now. So I don't know if you lost your oh no. It's just me. That's okay. We'll see if he makes it back in. I'm getting texts. He lost his power. So it the comments around the telephone table. I love it because it reminds me of, like I said, how different communication conventions are. And back in the day, if I had walked into the kitchen and my mom was on the phone, there would just be this swiping, you know, at the air, like, get out of here. And, the, it's a common space. It's a common space you're walking into. Yet somehow the rules don't apply, and we just kind of jived with that. Yeah, we jived with that. We just kind of understood that if the someone was on the phone in the kitchen there, that potentially you would be shushed or moved out of the room, and you would just have to kind of accept that. And I wonder, like, I'm thinking that's probably pretty common for a lot of pre-digital kids, their memory of that. Like, in my parents' house, they didn't have touch tone. Hey man, I was just telling the audience about my life with pre-digital, right? So this idea that the TV table could simultaneously be open territory because it's the kitchen, and also be a private conversation space. And I have memories of coming into the kitchen and my mom or my dad just doing this, like it's just waving you out, and you thought like there was like the sky was falling or something, but they were in a private conversation in the middle of the kitchen. And this is a very pre I think this is a very pre-digital phenomenon, because as soon as we started to get digital, we were on the slow on ramp to more conversations in isolation, and us unlearning community, like community communication, that community, that sort of like uh some of the I don't know want to say the graces, but just part of what happens when you can't just talk to an individual anywhere. It's like you probably remember this too. There was that stage at some point in your life, you probably noticed that individual on headphones talking to their phone, and you're like, oh, and then you're just like, oh, sorry, I thought you were talking to me, but they're actually talking to someone on their phone. But the assumption was that the only way that you would hear someone talking out loud was either on stage in the middle of a play, or you would see two people walking together. You would like this whole idea of the phantom that they're talking to. It wasn't as confusing. We went through a state there where all of a sudden it's confusing, where they could have potentially mental illness. They're walking on the street and they're just kind of talking, or they could have an earbud in and they're actually talking to someone somewhere else. So yeah, and again, I dig how you've had these conversations with your family. It totally makes sense. I feel like we've just kind of jumped over that. We've just jumped over that. There have been a couple of moments, it's funny, where I didn't know that Karen went upstairs to call one of her friends. And the rule in our house is that our bedroom doors are always closed, just because the cat will go into the room. So me going up into the bedroom, and the way my bedroom's designed, even if you are in the room on the far corner talking on your phone, it doesn't really make it through the door. Like you would it. And there's a lot of reasons. You get up to the top of the stairs, it's an immediate, quick left-hand turn right to our door. So it's not like there's approach time for me to go like, oh, is there a voice? Is there someone talking in there? And I was probably not even processing that she had gone upstairs to talk to someone. So I went right in, and there was such a micro moment, so theatrical, to me walking into the room and the look on her face of like, what are you doing? I'm on the phone. To right, he wouldn't have known that I was on the phone. So I love that you're having those combos. And I'll let me be the first. Welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you. So literally, so I told you the storm was here. Literally, the power. You may have seen the flicker. I don't know. It flickered for like, my God, it must not have been more than a second. But that flicker reset everything. So instantly, I got booted from the cast. I looked down because the router is underneath this table, and it's like blinking, like resetting. I'm like, ah, frig, I'm out. And then it was like, I texted you. I don't know if you got any of them, but I was like hoping.
Yeah, I texted back.
Oh,
Did you get my?
oh, I did not.
I did a thumbs up on you.
Okay. So I was like, okay, Chris, well, we know what to do. We take over until the other person returns from whatever's happening. I'm like, this is going to be awesome. Keep going. unless something happens to your power too anyway. So you go, I come back, which I love the story you were telling. Two
I
things.
didn't realize that first. I didn't actually
Oh,
realize that you were gone because I
was I
was
just
looking
frozen
down.
or what? Oh, you were
Yeah,
looking down.
I was down drawing. I was down drawing, so I started to talk about the TV table, and then I look up, and of course, I look up, and you frozen like this. This is how you're frozen.
Oh.
So it wasn't. There was nothing. So I look up. I'm like, okay, yeah, we're all good. And I go down, and I'm just drawing something else. And I look back up, and you're still in the same mode. I was like, oh, I said, and he's out. And then I look at the clock. I'm like, but we're still recording. I'm like, all right, here comes the story about the TV table, the
I love
telephone
it.
table. I mean, yeah. So just on we go.
I love it. So yeah, two things. So telephone table, TV table. Okay, so I don't have to tell anybody here that I'm going to another room to make a call, but I risk them yelling for me and maybe a couple of foul words that might come out of their mouth here and there for whatever. I just risk like there will be an explanation and I don't want to have to do it in the middle of a phone call. I don't know. Whatever. It's not that, it's just I've become accustomed to, well, if you ask my wife, she'll tell you I'm kind of a rule follower. I like to establish routines and process. So it's like, again, this door's closed Saturday mornings because I'm podcasting with you. Other times I'll tell them I'm making a call or I'm doing like a Teams meeting with somebody or something, and I'll leave the door open. That's an indication that, yeah, dad's doing this, but dad's not completely disconnected from the house.
Mhm.
Okay. And then that also shows them what's priority and what's not.
Yeah.
So you and I talking on a Saturday morning, that's a priority for me. Me having a Teams meeting with I don't even know who, but sometimes people don't want to talk on the phone. They want to do like a visual thing. That might not be like 100% priority. Like I'll tell them, hey, I'm living my life over here. I've got a family. Let's chat. Um, but just know somebody might walk in and ask me a question or whatever, and that's okay. But it is funny. It is funny, and we still, my wife and I, as teachers, we still do the. I'm a little bit different because I've got the work cell phone, but I'll say to my wife like, "Hey, tonight at 8 p.m. I'm gonna find a quiet place in the house, and I need to call a parent. I need to talk to a parent the only time, and with my weird job, right? Well, it's not even fair to say that. Sometimes parents are just not available, and so
Mhm.
we flex our schedule to be able to talk to them when they are available. I think all good teachers do that. At 8 p.m., I'm disappearing. I got to make a call. I'm talking to a parent about something important, so just that's where I'm gonna be. And my wife, it's funny, she'll do the same thing. If she doesn't go up to the room, she'll stay in the family room and she'll tell the whole family, keep your mouths shut, watch what you say. I'm in a call with a parent. It's like, okay. Because sometimes the boys they go at each other and just even they're just fun chatting is not appropriate maybe for like a parent to be listening to that isn't my wife or I. It's just the kids having fun, right? It's like, and maybe that is fine, but my wife doesn't want it, and neither do I. So we go from there. Rochelle, Rochelle, welcome, Rochelle. Happy Saturday morning,
Happy
Rochelle.
Saturday.
She lives in the same region as me, so she's experiencing this storm. She can totally relate, Chris, to the phone in the
Intermittent.
kitchen.
She's experiencing intermittent podcasting.
Maybe, hopefully
This is
not.
this. You know what's awesome? I'm totally. I want to get to what Rochelle's saying, but I will tell you, this is new. Like this is 3.0 podcasting because I will tell you, Chids, and you'll attest to this as well. Back in the day when we were both going solo mission on our pods, your pod you lose power. You're texting and saying, "Okay, let's set up another time," and you're taking that content and you're like, I'll sort of let me see if I can kind of I'll take it as just B-roll, and if I can use some, I will. Um, but there wasn't the just keep on swimming kind of a mindset. Now I'm speaking for you, but I will for me, it definitely was like that. I was like, okay, you know what? This isn't ideal. We're gonna play the compassion card. Let's see if we can reschedule. And that happened. That happened during snowstorms, rainstorms, sometimes just randomly someone's, Wi-Fi. I will say Wi-Fi now and Wi-Fi signals from when I first started doing podcasting are worlds worlds away, so much stronger, so much more clear. Like actually bandwidth issues haven't like that was always a thing. Like someone was getting squeezed out because you're sometimes using free tools or other tools. But anyways, yeah, the just keep swimming mindset, like to keep on kind of talking. I love that. I love that. And I love you knew that I probably would do it. I would just keep chatting and you managed to text on the side. So want to drop that in. Totally relate, Chris, regarding the phone in the kitchen. New York parents still had a rotary phone 3 years ago. Yeah, yeah. So at the top of the pod, so two things to that. Rochelle, I'm wondering if this was similar. So my grandparents, their hometown is Woods, funny enough, Woodstock, Ontario, not New York, but Woodstock, Ontario. And in back in the day, they had two two different exchanges, 539 and 537. And there were so few numbers, so like 537. It was, it was 519, I think. That's 519, I think, is the area code. But you didn't have to do the area code. So back in the day, you never had to use the area code. You didn't even have to use the 5 and the 3 if you didn't want to. You could just do 7 and then 4 digits, or 9 and 4 digits, and you would get to someone's house. And that was mind blowing to me. I grew up in Oshawa. We didn't have that. You had to do the full 7 digits to call someone. So that was my first thought, wondering if that was similar. The other thing I wanted to say is my my buddy Ryan that I was talking about at the top of the pod, he was telling me about, I forget where he said, his mom's located, but like up to 2 years ago. So she kept her rotary phone forever. So rotary phone, I think, is the tech term is pulse phone. That's what you actually call that. You call that a pulse phone. And then we moved to touch tone. So when you do the dialing of the dialing of the dial, the turning of the dial, the tack 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 sends a code and a pulse, and then your next number tack 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 sends another code and a pulse. So even though it's rotary, that would be called pulse. His mom had the rotary forever, and then I think the rotary phone died. I forget what. So they got a digital, so a touch tone phone, but it was still the pulse signal because mom didn't want to pay for the touch tone signal. So when you picked up this digital phone with the keypad, you hit 9 and you listen. It's like, dude, 7. It would still do the pulsing inside for each one. So it was the only time saving thing was the mechanical sort of turning of the finger. But when you hit the button, it still sounded like a rotary phone. And part of it was that she just didn't want to pay. She's like, I don't want to pay. We know now. I mean, that's the way of cable, everything. They grandfather you in until they finally say, it's time to update to your digital whatever. So I love it. Love it.
I don't remember. So I grew up in Ottawa, and I remember we could just make a phone call without having to use the area code. I remember those days, but I don't
Yep.
remember the shorter shortcut that you just talked about. I don't
I'm
remember that.
imagining you were in too big of a space.
That's
Like
what I'm
literally
thinking.
Woodstock, I think at the time was like, less than 20,000 people kind of a thing. It was just at the time it was a small town.
Rochelle, like me, had to do all 7 digits.
All
Her
7.
grandparents had a party line.
Love those. Love those. Yeah, that's that yeah. Where you pick it up and there's already someone talking, like, oh, sorry. It's like I said, my parents at the telephone table, they're like, get out. Or there's just like this known pause, like, I'm on the phone. You're like, okay. I wonder if she ever used the grandparents line, if there was like any protocols for that. Like, could you, because I've experienced it. It was more of urban myth when I grew up. Like, I don't think I had a lot of direct experience. I think some of my friends, they said, yeah, like up at their cottage, there's party lines all over the place. Fascinating little breach of confidence when you think about it, like a party line. The fact that, yeah, there's like, not only could someone walk into the room in your own house, but someone like remotely could walk into the room as you're having a conversation. That's fascinating. But I wonder if there was any protocols there, as in could you okay, so if you could you when you picked up the line if someone was already talking, could you say, okay, I need to use the line in 10 minutes, thank you? Or if you got to know, like, Mike, I told you I needed to use the phone today or whatever, like, could you get to know your neighbors through a party line? Was there any, social media element to it? Chat space.
Um, Rochelle says that yes, still pulse signal. That was her other comment, not to what you just asked. I wanted to also say, when Rochelle said that her New York parents, I'm gonna love. I know she was saying my parents, but I love that it says NY, so I'm gonna stick with New York. Her New York parents still had a rotary phone 3 years ago. I know Rochelle's dad. Like I don't know him well, but I've we've bumped into each other along the way over the years. My sister-in-law worked with Rochelle's dad, and I think I've said this before, but my Rochelle's mom was my wife's associate teacher when she was in teachers college. So there's lots of connections. And Rochelle and I joke with Rochelle about being she's a vegan. I joke with her about being a vegan all the time. But so there's lots of connections. And knowing her dad and his personality and the type of dude he is, I'm not surprised that there was still a rotary phone in the house um, up until 3 years ago, for sure. Rochelle responded, by the time she lived there during university, they had gotten rid of those.
Yeah.
I don't even when I didn't even know, like I've never been exposed to a party line, so that's kind of cool.
Dude, it
Oh,
literally is like you pick up the phone and someone's already talking.
she says she
And it's
still.
the only phone in your house.
Oh yeah, yeah, okay. Rochelle's saying she just got home from New York. All true, all true. Oh, it was funny when I worked with Rochelle and we had what were those days called? Treat days. I don't remember at Bauer if they were Fridays or Wednesdays, but we'd have treat days. Oh, okay, she's giving it away. Not completely vegan, just allergic to dairy and eggs. I know, but she probably mentioned that in the staff room, and me being a dick, I was like, she's friggin' vegan. She can't eat anything. And then that's the joke now. She's vegan. And it's hilarious because I'm such a dick that when I see recipes or something online that say this is vegan, I want to tweet it at her, but I don't. So, Rochelle, there you go. I think of you in positive ways. Um, I had another thought, and then I'll shut up. I'm on TPA this year. I'm supposed to be on TPA this year,
Cool.
but I had a laugh because I'm like, they're probably going to send my TPA letter to Bauer, where I
Um,
don't work. And then, since, hey, I'm on this track, this dick track at the minute, I could be a real dick if I'm not served that letter within the 20 days of school, the first 20 days of school, and I could argue that you guys broke the rules. I've not been informed within the timeline that I have to be informed. Therefore, I'm not doing my TPA this year. Um, but I'm sure then they would say, "Hey, we're all stupid, so that's not our fault that we are this way, and we don't know where you work." Blah blah blah. Having said all that, I am excited, which is weird because I don't think I've ever said that before. I am excited about my TPA because I'm doing it with an amazing principal who, like, I I really, my principal's great, so I'm wide open to what this will look like, and because I'm doing a different role, it's an opportunity to operate this TPA thing in a different way. I'm excited for that. I'm looking forward to talking with my principal about, well, the non-traditional things, but like, how do I communicate with parents? How do I differentiate for my students? How do I support them? How do I use my PLN to help me grow in my work? Like these things that I've talked about in a traditional TPA, I'm looking forward to talking about it in my non-traditional role. And then the last thing before I end is Rochelle says that she's so happy we have that joke together, the vegan joke. Yeah, it is pretty funny, Rochelle, and she's always been a good sport about it. So I appreciate that. But if she told me, hey, Chidiak, that's enough, like it's not funny anymore, okay, that's cool. I'm out. I'll stop. But I haven't gotten that signal, and I don't think I've taken it over the line. It's just Rochelle's vegan. We need to accommodate. And people don't know what I'm talking about and they believe me. So it's all good.
The your mention of the TPA, I can remember s- having a conversation with someone as we were sort of in that sort of 2-year COVID stretch where everything was, could is it going to be Zoom? Will it be Zoom? Like everything where we were sort of doing things remotely, doing a lot of things differently. Um, I'm looking back on it too as like it was quite an explosion of innovation. And I wondered, I wondered, my TPA happened the year after. So we were back in the classroom when I had my TPA. So that was 2 years ago. I had my TPA. So is that right? 2 years ago, 1 year ago. Yeah, school year ago I had it. I think I'm doing that right. Anyways, um, I put it to an administrator. I'm like, what did the discussions look like at your sort of like collaborative tables about doing TPAs differently? And does the instruction manual kind of cover, like, is it broad enough to cover the conditions under which we're teaching right now? Because I felt like because there was so many different contexts, there were so many new ways that people were delivering curriculum, not only new as a whole, but like new for individuals to try. Like some teachers instantly flipping to a digital style and their whole pedagogy just being disrupted. Which, for me, I think that's a good thing to happen sometimes, a little bit of disruption. It gives you a different look, definitely a different look at the way you do your work. For other people, it was devastating. It was like there was just no way back. And for some of those individuals that it was devastating, or some of those ones that were just cresting the wave, it's their TPA year, right? Now, a lot of those got bumped. I think there was provision there where I think principals were allowed to kind of like delay some. Trying to think back because I remember there were some people that they were just openly kind of saying, "Yeah, we're not going to get to it. We can't get to it, so it can happen." Anyways, your position naturally sits in this new order, at least for your board, of pedagogies, right? This idea that you're out there as a teacher. Even every time you tell me that you're a teacher, my brain kind of goes, there's some dissonance there because the expectations of the type of the work that you're doing straddles a couple different fences here that could be perceived as being a teacher, but as soon as you articulate as being this is teaching, if you're to tell that to someone that has a classroom, it's like, well, how can that be teaching? Like how is that teaching, right? You've mentioned the overlap between psych support, wellness support, social worker support. So you're in this really fascinating space. And I wonder, you know, it's cool. You're right. The stories you've told, what you've shared about your principal. Your principal gets it. Your principal gets alt learning spaces. Totally gets that. Gets the you have to go there mindset. Don't just expect the kid to come here. Like that's all all cool. Um, I still wonder. I still wonder about does this does a TPA like yours need to rely heavily on the personal judgment of the assessor in order to clearly assess what you do. So, whatever the look fors are, how well do they even align with the type of the work that you do, right? And I know sometimes, like, this is the whole rubric discussion. Like, you could design a rubric that tells you you're in the general, you're in this general level according to this criteria. Depending on how specific the criteria is, you can be completely off the rubric. So deciding what's actually on that assessment tool, if that assessment tool, we'll call it professional judgment, then you're golden because you're able to kind of speak to the form of your job in a way that isn't bound by specific terms and growing success. And maybe you threaded it back. Maybe you have. maybe someone has, maybe sort of like, has used grounding documents to sort of like explode out what you do on your daily. And I know you're a detailed guy, you're an assessment guy, you get it. Maybe you've done it as well. But TPAs like yours and portfolios like yours, my brain automatically goes, this is going to be mind blowing because where does this fit on the rubric? And I mean, your positions also pop open that should they even be accessible, like on that rubric?
You ask a lot of good questions, and I have to tell you that I I don't know the answers, but I do know that the year before last, when we started this re-engagement position in my school board, I had a teaching partner. There were two of us, and she was on TPA. So I got a flavor for what it looks like with my current principal. I have an idea of what she might ask for. It is different. It is it when my partner did it, it was more conversational and case study based. So it was like, I imagine, I don't know for sure, but I imagine my principal said to her, okay, you know what? Give me like two or three different case studies of like what you're working with, how you're dealing with it. How are you meeting the students' needs? How are you collaborating? Tell me all the awesome things you're doing in your role to help this kid move forward, and let's chat about it. I am like, now it could have been more in depth. I was like, I stepped away. I'm like, I don't need to know. It's not, I got to do my job. I don't need to know. I'm years away. I was 2 years away from my TPA, so it's like I don't care. But it was kind
Mhm,
of neat to hear some of what my partner had was experiencing. So the fact that my principal gets it is friggin' huge, right? Because I, there are some principals in my system that if they were in this role, and I honestly don't think that they would be in this role because they wouldn't be able to function in this role.
mhm,
They would, but let's say somebody took Principal A and dropped them into Alt Ed, they would still try to do a TPA the way it looks like when the teacher's in the classroom all day creating lesson plans and this and having duty and bringing in guest speakers. Like they would still try to force that, even
mhm,
though it's like, bro, I'm not in a school like that. I'm not writing lesson plans like that. You know, do I have a day book? Yes, of course. I have a schedule for the day. But we all know that it can explode at a moment's notice. And so it's funny because I have a plan for the day, but I laugh every day that I think that my plan's going to go according to what I want to happen that day. It never does. But that's part of my role. And so um my principal gets it. My principal gets it. My principal can contact me anytime she wants. She doesn't have to call my classroom and say, "Can I talk to you?" She can just text me or call me and say, "Can we chat?" Yeah, of
mhm.
course we can chat. Um, she's gonna do it differently. Now, I don't know how it fits within. Is there a TPA process or amendment for people that aren't in the traditional
Mhm.
classroom?
Yeah,
Okay,
guidance. Yeah, so the guidance. So there is a format. So there is a
okay,
guidance. A guidance. I think the guidance one often. I think the guidance is the alternative version. I think that when things could have changed, things could have changed entirely. But my understanding is that from back in the day, if you are in a trad classroom, there's that version, and then guidance, and I think co-op. Maybe there's an alternative version there, and I think that's the two different spaces. Like there isn't another customized space where they're acknowledging, you know, like you flat out. So I think the guidance process or protocol, whatever it is more of that sort of interview style. It is a more case study based. Of course, you're going to show your documentation, whatever planning looks like for you, whatever scheduling looks like for you, whatever communication looks like for you. So those are all the major tenets. How you're driving student success looks like for you. um, but it does strip out the whole. There is a version that doesn't speak directly to um, long range plans and lesson plans. And the other thing too, classroom, being able to observe, like for example, as a guidance counselor, I have heard in the past, and this is kind of weird, that guidance counselors, I was at a school where in the year of the TPA, the principal pressured the guidance counselors to have a section of careers because they wanted be, and this is the unfortunate. Actually, I'm going to come at this in a different way. So I was talking to Ryan yesterday when we were talking about this whole idea of I believe that I believe that to be you don't have to have been a rock star teacher to be a rock star administrator. I actually do believe, and I've now experienced education enough to see that education as a career is a really big landscape. The unfortunate thing is that it's still anchored, and kind of success is still defined by experience in a classroom, for better or for worse. I think I've started to shift that you can actually be in a space in education and never have, or way in your past, been in a classroom working directly with kids and still actually be amazing at your job. Amazing at your job. I think it's unfortunate. So that's just a belief system. You know what? If I were to be back in, it's funny. Remember back in faculty, one of the assignments you had to do when you first started out, you had to start to develop your philosophy of education. Did you have to do that? Kind of like what your mission statement was? And I think now I would be a lot heavier saying you don't have to be an amazing, there isn't a progression like you have to become something in order to be good at what you are. And so if you're actually great at leading adults, there's a space for you in education. If you like painting pictures, there's a space for you in education. If you want to focus just on tech, there's a space for you in education. I think that'd be closer to my EDU philosophy now, which wouldn't work when you're trying to get a job. But once you have the job, people kind of shake their head and go, yeah, I get where you're coming from. So going back to this principle that kind of leveraged their guidance team to have a careers course, I think that's really short-sightedness, sort of saying, because I think it does two things. One, it doesn't honor the actual schedule, the actual strengths of that team. So I'm going to force you to take on a section of careers, which philosophically, I don't disagree with. I think it's good if you are in a school and you have the opportunity to stay connected with, and especially if you're the head of like a guidance department, I think it is good for you to have some sort of finger on what those careers courses look like. And you can be the designer, but to deliver it too gives you some great feedback as to whether or not that courseware that you designed is excellent. I think to force someone in a TPA year, though, to say, okay, now here's the year, we're going to jump in and do a section just because that's the only way, or that's the way that I will see value in your work, then that's a problem. That's a problem. Now, this is a dated story. The story that I'm telling you is about 9 years old. So things have changed, I'm sure. Bring it to the space you're in. This mindset that if I put that all together into the same kind of like salad bowl, you are now representing a role in education that isn't bound by a classroom or lesson planning. It's also a position that somehow skirts the line between, let's say, being an alternative guidance space and being a wellness space. So it is fortunate that that you have an administrator that sees that. There's no surprises there because you're a part of their school. The school that you're attached to does all this. Um, I think one of the downsides to your principal getting it or being in such um, a soft landing space for the work that you do is that it keeps it away from the big school and the trad schools. So the work that you're doing, yes, necessary, but it also strikes me as like, how does what you're doing communicate out to the larger educational kind of landscape to say, hey, by the way, this open-ended wide space classroom that I'm rocking from my mobile phone and my car, you folks out there kind of need to know that this work is being done. Now, I'm not saying this has to pop up during your TPA. It's not like you have to like, who knows, maybe we'll talk about it on the pod too. It doesn't have to be, you're not looking to save all of EDU through this TPA, but it does remind me sometimes of going back to when the alt ed classroom was opened up in my school, and there was really strong push to say, why can't we keep that as a remote space? And there was something about that that made me feel really uncomfortable. Like I really didn't like this idea that we're being pushed out. Like some of these kids are already out, and you're kind of saying, okay, the program has to be out too. And you could say, well, put the program out there so the kids don't have to come into the school. The school wasn't open to them. But there was something about this mindset that because there was such a disconnect from the source, and many of these kids left the traditional school, that when they came into the alt spaces, the trad school, which had the lion's share of the funding, the lion's share of the staffing, the lion's share of the resourcing, because it starts there. Some alt schools are different, but for the most part, the system sees the traditional schools first. I think about how, this TPA, if it were done within the context of within a school that wasn't an alt school, it has the potential to be a powerful communicator and a reminder of what's going on in the spaces that the kids that you work with. And it is timely. This project that you're a part of, this portfolio that you're a part of, has stemmed out of those 2 years where we were on COVID hiatus, right? Like it kind of came out of that, and your board's like, hey, we need to do something here. Moving forward, it would be fascinating to see, and probably entirely appropriate, to have positions like yours within schools, right? Pokemon, got to catch them all in some way before they sort of become um, a part of the alt system, which for some is good, but for others, what if you could keep them in the original school that they were at? I don't know.
A
Like,
couple of oh, sorry.
no, no, man, it's good. I like TPAs. I like
I know
trying
you
to
do.
find.
I don't.
Well, what I like to do with TPAs is to have deeper conversations about how do we integrate it more finely into the fabric of school life, not having it feel like such an outlandish outlier in our day. And I think there's really cool ways to be able to do that. Time, patience, I don't know. There's a lot of things that kind of keep them from being palatable.
But bro, you've lit me up with a couple of things. So for me, it starts with the administrator.
Mm,
And for me, my definition of a good administrator is someone who's paying attention to what you're doing all the time. So if
yeah.
I'm working at a school and I've been there for 3 years, and then boom, in the fourth year I'm doing a TPA, it shouldn't be it. I struggle with, so I've had TPAs. I've had two types of TPAs. I've had the TPAs with administrators that watch you, listen to you, collaborate with you over time, and can easily speak to how you communicate with parents, can easily speak to your classroom philosophy and the way you deal with disciplinary issues, can clearly speak to your pedagogy. Okay? Then I've got other principals that refuse to acknowledge anything that's happened outside the window of the 2 weeks that you're doing your TPA. And if you mess up, or if you don't demonstrate for whatever reason over those 2 weeks that this is how you communicate with parents, then they hammer you. And it's like, it's absolutely ridiculous. So, in those situations, I dislike the TPA process very much. Uh, I, okay, so I was working at one school, had a brand new principal, and I was on TPA. So I walked into the principal's office early in the school year and I said, hey, I'm on TPA this year. Okay, that's fine. What is it that you're going to be looking for? And the response was, "What do you mean? What am I looking for?" And I said, "Well," and here's the thing. And we got off to a bad start. We did with this guy. I totally did. And I was okay with it. I didn't care, which kind of sucks on my part. But, I said to him, "Well, all you administrators have like certain things you want to see. And so what is it? So I can build around that." And he was like, I want to see good work. Like he's basically like, "Are you not doing good work? And when I tell you what I'm looking for, you're going to start giving me what I'm looking for." And I'm like, I operate a certain way and I'm confident in how I operate. But if you're going to ask me in May for artifacts that I don't do the way that you want, then when I say to you, I don't have those, you're going to say to me that I'm not doing a good job as a teacher. That's not cool. If there are some non-negotiables with you that operate a certain way, I think I'd like to know that so I can provide you what it is you're looking for. So we were having this back and forth, two egos talking to each other. And I remember he said, "Oh, I'll send you something in the winter." And I remember I did my TPA in like May. So he left me to like the very end, which is absolutely ridiculous. But anyway, that was his choice. I called the union and I said, "Hey, this is what I'm up against." And they're like, "It's not Roland, you're going to be fine." I said, "Yeah, thanks, Prez," while you're sitting behind your desk. And I'm the one in the classroom all day with these kids and working with this guy. Not cool. That's when the president said to me, "Well, you know what you could do?" He goes, "Part of the Ontario TPA is that portfolio thing at the back of the document. It gives you like a template for all the look fors." And he goes, "You could just create a portfolio of, you know, different parts of the sections of the TPA." I took that to heart. The next day, I printed that thing off. I got one of those big black binders and I started collecting artifacts. How do I do this? How do I do that? There were some expectations that made me laugh out loud. One of them is, something to do with what's my participation at a provincial level? I laughed out loud thinking, number one, many of the teachers I work with and know don't give a rat's ass about what's happening at a provincial level. They're focused on their classroom. They're not worried about how do I join a committee here? How do I communicate with the ministry over here? That's not on their radar, but it's one of the expectations.
Mhm.
Me, being a weirdo, take that to heart. I was already doing provincial stuff. That's what kind of weirdo I am. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to print off this email that says that I've done this work with the ministry and put it in the big black binder. So as I'm collecting all these things and we're going, the friggin' school year is just evaporating. I'm I'm tense and anxious because I'd like to get my TPA done sooner rather than later because it's a pain in the ass and I don't
Mhm.
want to do it with this guy, right? So we get to the end. We get to TPA time. And he does my TPA and I say to him, "By the way, I've been collecting artifacts all year." Oh, and he did tell me. So when it was my turn and we talked about the lesson I was going to do, he sent me an email, the things that he was going to look for. He sent me an email saying, "I'm going to want to see your day book. I'm going to want to see your assessment and evaluation book. I'm going to want to see your parent communication book if you have a book or a binder." Oh, pretty normal stuff. But I'm like, why didn't you tell me that? Why didn't you tell me that in October? Why did you wait until the winter? But anyway, you do what you do and I'll do me. So then I drop this big black binder. It's hilarious. Boom. I'm like, whatever expectations you didn't see in the classroom, you'll probably find in the binder. Well, this guy ends up writing my TPA paperwork, and I'd say 85% of what he referred to in my TPA came from my binder. So he flipped through my binder and he's like, "Oh, I like this. I like what you did here with reading assessments." And he wrote about it in my TPA. And my TPA was great. But then this is the guy that forced me out of the building at the end of the year with a grade change that he knew that was unacceptable to me. Right. So it's like I've gone through it that way. I've also gone through it with an administrator that says that he goes, "Your TPA is going to be easy to do. I've known you for years. I know exactly how you operate." I say, he's like, I trust you implicitly. You do all kinds of stuff in the building. People speak highly of you. Your kids love you. This this is gonna be an easy one. I already know the answers to the questions that I'm looking for. I know it all. I've been watching you for years. That's what I do with my staff. And
Mhm.
I'm like, and you still get nervous. I remember when this principal came in to observe me, 20 minutes into the lesson, his phone rings. So he gets up and he leaves the room. The kids are like, where'd he go? Because
Yeah.
I told the kids, I'm like, Mr. G's coming in. This is I told them he's coming in. He's observing me. He wants to make sure I'm doing my job. And I did not do the Johnny, you will not speak until this. I no, I'm like, we're a good classroom community here. I said, like, don't be a jerk to one another because that's not cool with the principal in the room. I know you guys, you get into arguments, whatever, but principal's coming. Let's be a little bit, let's up our game a little bit. But he leaves and they're like, but he's not gonna know what you just did. Like they're like, what are you gonna do, Mr. C? He's gone. I'm like, he'll be back. So I just kept teaching the lesson. The lesson's coming to an end. He comes in, he sits down. One of the kids goes up to him. They're like, where'd you go? You missed. And they tell him what he missed, which is friggin' awesome because he's got this big smile on his face. He's like, oh, so you're paying attention to your teacher? Like you actually know what the lesson's about and what you're about to go do? Tell me more about that. So the kids are like, where'd you go? You can't do that. And he's laughing because he's like, well, you're all going to tell me what I missed, which is perfect because I know you're paying attention and I know your teacher's doing different things to make sure you all understand. So it was pretty funny. And then they're working, and as they're working, he's like, okay, I'm out of here. I'm done. I saw what I needed to see. I've got my notes. He leaves. They're like, where's he going? We're not even done. Those are the beautiful moments. Those are the TPAs that I want. That's what I want. I don't want the dimwit principal who's like, I'm going to ignore everything you do and I'm just going to pay attention to that one zone, to that one zone. He wanted to catch me with, oh, you gave me everything I asked for. Yeah, why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't I let you look at my communication binder? Why
Mhm.
wouldn't I let you look at my assessment and evaluation book? Why? Why do you have to be a dick? Why can't you just tell me there are certain things? Every principal's got their thing. What's your thing? That's all I'm asking you. I don't know you. What's your thing? I don't want to get caught at the end fighting with you. I want to
That's
give
true.
you what it is you want. And if I'm working for you, and I dislike this guy, but if I'm working for you and you have some non-negotiables, doesn't it make sense that I would try to operate in the way that you would like your school to operate? I don't get it. I don't get it. You just want to catch me doing something wrong because you want to say things that are not they're not right. So then when I left that school and people couldn't believe that he did what he did to me, they're like, "What did your TPA look like?" I said, "It was friggin' glowing. My TPA says I am exactly where I'm supposed to be, and yet he feels I need to be somewhere else." That's interesting. I will give him credit. He was smart enough not to ruin the TPA. Like he was smart enough not to. He was messing with me, but he didn't do it via the TPA because I think he would have paid hard for that because I am not a bad teacher. I am a great practitioner. So he would have paid for that. That would have worked against him. And so he was smart enough not to nail me that way. Um, but then, I go to the next school and I talked to my principal about my TPA, and then I showed her my TPA. She's like, "This is amazing." I'm like, "Awesome, thanks for hiring me." And then she let me go and do my thing. Um, Having said all that, this TPA, I'm actually excited because my principal gets it. I'm excited because I trust my principal. I want to do good by her. So again, I kind of know what she wants out of her staff and it fits with my vision, so it's great. Right? Like the minute when she says, "Hey, guys and gals, I want you to start operating this way," or "How are we operating in this way?" I take that to heart. How am I? And if I'm not, what do I do? How do I start moving in that direction? Because I know what she's about and I know the space I'm in with the alt ed is we're working with kids that people might not want to work with. So what are we doing to help those kids along? Um, yeah, I think it's the first time I've been excited for a TPA, even though I've worked for principals that have said to me, relax, it's not a big deal. I'm like, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. And they're like, no, it's not. I'm like, it is, because you are in control of this, and I don't like that. They're like, no, you're in control. I'm like, no, I'm not in control. Because if I were, I'd tell you, why do all the formal paperwork if you see that I'm operating fine? Why? Right? Um, that's enough. But Rochelle says, give admin enough resources to be able to get into classrooms daily. That would be good. Even if my principal said to me, hey, can I meet you at a couple of your student locations? Like, if she said, Jimmy, what's going on with Jimmy? I said, Jimmy's not leaving his house. He's not leaving his house. So I go visit him on his porch. And if she said, can I come talk to Jimmy? I'm like, yeah, two thumbs up. Come talk to Jimmy, because I tell all my students about my principal, and they don't believe me. They think my principal's snuffleupagus because they're never around. I'm like, no, I have a principal. I report to somebody, and I let them know how things are going. But even if my principal said, can I come? Can I observe you working with two of your kids? I say, yeah, no problem. Let's go to Jimmy, who never leaves his house, and let's go to so and so, who's at school every day and who's starting to move in a better direction, because they have someone like me who can counsel them daily, who can check in daily, who can work with them one on one and really like look at their needs and provide them in a hyper focused way of what they need to succeed. And talk to the teachers that I collaborate with, talk to the administrators that I'm checking in with, weekly, to say this is what's going on, or uh-oh, this is not working. Can you give the kid a little bit of slack for this and that? Like, I'm excited for those moments, because that's what brought me into this role, is all that different stuff that's happening. It's so exciting to me. And people might not like it, and that's okay. Um, if you're telling my principal there's something about me you don't like that you haven't told me, well, that shows that you've got a problem, not me. I mean, and I've talked to you about this, people push back, and I take their pushback and I try to build. Okay, so you don't like this, or this isn't working for you, or you think I'm doing nothing. Okay, thank you for telling me. So let me adjust now so you can see what I'm going to do next, or that I am doing things. They just might not be as clear to you as they are to me. Whatever, like, let's work through those things. That's what collaboration is. So if you're not telling me anything, then how am I supposed to know? Right. So having said all that, for me, it starts with the principal. So I'm so happy. I've worked with my principal in different capacities over the years before she was even a principal. So it's really cool to work with her as a principal. And I'm excited to demonstrate that I'm my work to her. But it's safe to say she already knows the work I do. She asks, she needs something, it's there, right? I'm doing it. She gets it. It's good. I want to welcome Cosmic Adonis. Um, he's one of the cool dudes I interact with on Twitter, and he's here checking us out. So welcome, Cosmic.
Nice, nice, cool handle profile pic.
The profile pic kills me every time.
Yeah, it's got some Saturday morning sass on it. That's awesome.
He's from down south too, so I would say Cosmic is a little sassy. He's
Yeah,
got, yeah,
a little
yeah,
sass.
but he's high order thinking. Like, he pushes back on stuff. I think you dig him, Clough. I think you
I
guys
like
would get
that.
along for
I
sure.
like that.
What's left after my TPA rant? Okay, this is the part of the podcast where Chris. Oh, what does it say in the cloud, Chris? I can't.
It's just the date. It's
Oh,
the
decoded.
decoded details.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I love it. Cosmic says, "Oh snap, loving this chids." But what's even funnier is he says, "Bayou philosopher." That's
Nice.
true.
And I'm trying to put together what that flavor is. A Bayou philosopher. What's
Well,
this? What's the angle there? Eh? Like what's the vibe? Philosopher's straightforward. I'd love to know what the seasoning Bayou brings to it.
that's cool because Cosmic has a southern gentlemanness to him. Like, when I Cosmic, well, this is funny that I'm talking about Cosmic while Cosmic's here, he gives off this he's a southern gentleman. I'm going to say that.
Mhm,
I don't know if that's fair to say, but that's the
mhm.
vibe I get. He can roll with the intellectuals no problem, but he can also turn into a 12-year-old boy instantly. I like that flexibility, but he's very, I don't know what you think of when I say southern gentleman, but that's kind of the vibe I get. Oh, come on a Wednesday, we get into it. So on Wednesday nights, he runs a space around mindfulness, mental health,
Mhm.
um, with another guy, Steve. Sean and Steve is the name of that's their Twitter handle. So Cosmic's real name is Sean, and he goes deep on Wednesday nights for an hour and a half around mental health, mindfulness. He's deep that way, but then you tell him a 12-year-old joke and he'll laugh pretty hard. So he can he can do that. He's flexible that way.
There's the bayou.
There's the bayou.
There's the bayou in the bio.
I like that. The bayou in the bio.
I'm
But
good for one or
Chris
two.
Chris is no Chris comes to Twitter to visit. Do you think will you've been on many trips to Twitter. Do you think you ever come back, or is that to be told at a later date whether you'll come back and visit
I
again?
don't know. I think it was in the on-ramp. It was in the on-ramp that I mentioned to you when I think about, um, the path that I'm following with my digital footprint right now. It's taken a big turn. I will say flat out, I don't I have an appreciation for Twitter. I get it. Um, but I don't feel like I need it. That's really what it kinda comes down to. I don't feel like I need it. I don't need it to grow, and this is coming from a place of I've used it. I've been there. I've been deep. I've been addicted. I've been supportive. I've been collaborative. Like, I've had all of the ifs, um, when it comes to using Twitter as a social media platform. Use it for business, use it for creativity, use it for mindfulness, use it for book clubs, use it for teaching. God, use it for, like, when I needed mental health tools, all that kind of stuff. I used it while I was grieving after my dad. So I have a very robust relationship with that social media tool, and I land now saying I don't think I need it. I don't crave to use it, um, and I don't have any investments there that I don't have similar or better investments in other spaces. So I can't say. I think I'm kind of in that 1 to 5% chance of ever coming back to Twitter. If I did, you're right, it would be with purpose. Like, my last stop there wasn't holiday. Holiday was March break, and then I left. I came back the last time just at doing an AI inquiry, right? Kind of lit myself up in learning about those tools, specifically as connected with a little bit of the art stuff, a little bit of the creative stuff that I think became more your kind of fascination. I was just looking specifically at how is it in alignment with special education. And I kind of got my bits. The thing that here's where part of the line in me saying I that I is such a small percentage of me to go back is because what I learned while I was there, I haven't actioned yet. So that research that I did, I'll be rolling some of that into my portfolio in September. And it's really important to me. One of the things I have learned about social media, especially if I'm using it for work, is that the bystander effect is strong. And you get this idea like you're actually doing something by being there and learning from amazing people. But time spent there and not spent on actually developing something, building something, creating something is problematic because you don't come back with any lived experience or lived evidence. So that's a risk right now. That would be part of the risk of coming back to Twitter is that I haven't actually taken any of the advice or the resources and developed them to a space where I would come back respectfully and say, "Hey, thank you. Look at what I've done with it." Like, I don't have the evidence to prove that I actually did. I have no proof of product. It's just all kind of conceptual at this point. So 1 to 5%. The social part is being fed in other spaces, so I don't have that kind of connection to it. And as far as the mental wellness stuff that I used it for, I also have other resources now that are supporting that, different resources. So 1 to 5%, bro.
That's cool. Well, right now I'm still in this space, so when you come to visit, it's always good. I always love just hitting the follow button, seeing what you're up to.
Hmm.
Um, and I love the like the way you do it. Like the first time you came back to Twitter and said, "I'm just vacationing here. I don't know how long I'm going to be here, but it could be a week, it could be 3 weeks. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. I'm on vacation until the vacation's over." That's awesome. Like I think that's a great way to do it if it works for you. Um, so yeah, that's cool. It provides flexibility for other people to see, hey, this guy's just here chilling for a little bit around these topics.
Hmm.
I guess I could do the same if I wanted to, because I know I've talked to people about being tired of Twitter, now X. People have said, I'm just tired of going on there, checking the timeline. It's not feeding them, it's hurting them. And it's like, whoa, why are you hurting yourself? Which
Hmm.
that's a deep question, because lots of people do things that hurt them, right? But they do it anyway for a number of
Hmm.
reasons. But it's like, well, you don't have to hurt yourself.
It's
You can
true.
you can pull a Clough and just literally, if you just thinking of it as a vacation, with what that means to most people, that connection is a new connection, right? They've never thought of it that way, but you can think of it that way. You've done it several times now.
Hmm.
That's cool.
Yeah. I know it's a good exercise for me to remind myself too of how temporary that space actually is. Like just this idea that in that um it's like a lease, right? You have nothing in the end. You don't necessarily, that's my mindset. You don't walk away with anything. So I kind of got used to this idea that if like I'm not actually creating artifacts on Twitter, it's just a bridge to carry. It's just like it's a like a hollow hallway to sort of bring your stuff to other people, and then you walk back, and it's temporary. So that's the other part too, is that I never got to a space where I actually felt like I was creating content with the tools of Twitter. Like there aren't creative tools associated with Twitter that I enjoyed. I mean, the Spaces was about the most robust creative tool that they came up with. It's a very sort of bare bones communication device. People have found creative things to do with Twitter, let's say. But I think that's the other part too that reminded me, like this, the space, like you said, I wouldn't say that it was harming me, but I would say it didn't feed my creative side. Like it doesn't light me up that way. Um, and though I appreciate a good 12-year-old joke, I don't go, I wouldn't go there for that. Do you know what I mean? I wouldn't go there to, so good on you for having that sort of that personal connection there. I think that's what makes it easier for me just to walk away from. I will say I feel more of that with Instagram.
Mm.
Yeah, I feel like the creative tools there and the individuals that I connect with there, I feel more value in sort of being in that space, which is also why I thought check out Threads. Like that was my path. I'm like, okay, let's see if what I creatively am experiencing on Instagram, if I can find individuals that are willing to do that in a text-based kind of like pursuit. And I found some peeps there that are lighting me up with my writing. So for now, that space works too, for sure.
Sean says live stream is running and boosted nowadays, but I definitely respect and get where he's coming from.
Yeah. Yeah. Live stream. And as in, is that a brand or just a concept? Is that what Cosmic's talking about? Or just this idea? Like I just, because it's capitalized, I just don't know if he's respecting punctuation rules or if that's an actual brand like live stream, right? It could be one of the two. Yeah, I think part of that is perception as well. So, like, I don't find like engagement. I'm not looking for a widespread engagement. I'm narrow banding it. So I'm not looking for this massive live stream on Twitter. Okay. Yeah, I'm not looking for a broadcast. I'm looking for narrow band. So a lot of the one-to-one stuff that I'm getting starts to feel kind of niche, but that's what I care about, right? Like that's what I'm sort of looking for. I don't need to be in a Twitter space with 200 people. I
And
can,
actually,
I
those
don't,
ones. Oh, sorry. Go go.
I was just say I don't feel the same gain than some of the conversations and resource sharing that I'm getting in very, very small spaces on threads. So, and I think part of that too, and I don't know Cosmic's sort of like branding on my assumption automatically was that he's kind of a part of your Web3 crew or part of the NFT crew that you're a part of. Um, and for me, because I'm not sort of circling in those spaces, and you mentioned before what a cool crew that is on Twitter and the vibe that you get from them. Um, it's funny. I sort of see I s- I'm appreciating the smaller room element of threads and still feeling like I'm connecting with individuals that I kind of care about their content and potentially care about them as humans too. Like you start to do that slow growth into the relationships. So
I hear you. It's funny. I find, for example, the spaces that have 200 plus people on them, it's more like of a broadcast than it is. There's like, several people at the top who are talking to each other, but it's not intimate. It's like a broadcast blast.
mhm.
Whereas, like for example, what Sean and Steve do on Wednesdays, yeah, I mean, I'm sure they would love to have 200 people in the room, but it doesn't feel.
I wonder if they would.
Oh,
I
maybe,
wonder if they yeah, if
but
Cosmic, if you're still here, is there a number? Is there a number that is the tipping point between narrow band and broadcast kind of content production, right?
I'll tell you though,
Like I
as
think
a
the number 16. I think there actually is a number.
oh,
I think there
like
actually is a
okay,
number where it moves from where you swing the needle entirely away from any possibility of having intimacy in that room. Trust, intimacy, authenticity, and honesty. I think there's a metric that you could look into where that number swings into it and you're into a zone where you automatically have to be a little bit more diffuse, a little bit more democratic, less and it sort of accept the gregariousness of it, but you can't drive at the same outcome. You're no longer that space of actually collaboratively creating anything. It is a sit and get. There's some science there. There's some marketing science.
I believe that for sure.
Yeah.
I think, you know, from what I know of Sean and Steve,
Hmm.
they would love to get the message out to as many people as possible. But for me as a listener and sometimes speaker on their space, they present the topic, they go back and forth a little bit, and they just open it up. You raise your,
Hmm.
you want something, you gonna say something. Obviously, when it's not as big in the room, there's more space for people to continue a conversation, so to speak, between each other. But
Hmm.
you're right, there's science there. Cosmic says that it's around 70% no and 30% yes. 16 is actually really close to what I have seen. When we get above 2025, the intimacy and openness of guests
Probably
slows
guests.
down a
Yeah.
lot. Yeah.
So they've noticed it. So yeah. So it's fascinating, eh? Like
Cosmic.
Richard is
Just
Richard is. Oh,
I my first name is not Richard, it's Roland.
okay. Oh, there we
But
go.
I love it. You didn't call me Ronald. That's the worst. I can't stand somebody calling me Ronald.
You must have been dropping into the space when there was like more than 20 people there, right? The intimacy was gone.
But
Jimmy. We'll call you Jimmy.
Jimmy,
We're all Jimmy.
yeah, Jimmy. Oh, I use that all the time now.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
feel bad. I know two guys named Jimmy. I feel a little bit bad for them when I use Jimmy's name for bad
I've only
things.
known a James.
Oh,
I've known two Jameses, and they went by James. They didn't
well,
shorten it.
we know some Jamies, but they don't go by Jimmy.
They don't. We should test drive that.
And I wonder if their full name is James or if it's actually Jamie.
I don't know.
Oh, um, Cosmic laughs, says, yes, I've been full of my brain movies betraying me today.
All right. I
Um,
gotta bust out soon, but
yeah.
I wanna send a thank you to you. I don't know, maybe Cosmic. Let's see if I can tap in anything for Cosmic too. Um, I finished The Bear season 2.
Okay. Good. Because my wife and I are going to be starting episode 7 soon. And episode 6 was the crazy chaotic episode that you were referring to in your polo to me. And I responded to you by telling you that when that episode started, I could feel my anxiety ramp up. And then I had to tell myself, I think one of my kids came in the room to talk to their mom. I paused it and I said, Roland, they built this episode for you to feel like this.
It
So
was totally constructed,
totally.
yet entirely on point. That was
So
the 2 things.
as
So,
soon as soon as I told myself it's a TV show, they're
mhm.
doing this on purpose, is how I'm supposed to feel. When I pressed play again, I was still feeling some of the emotion because I wanted to be in the episode, but not enough to throw me over the edge. So it was like a controlled anxiety. It was just funny. I kind of played myself to prepare myself. But
Yeah,
okay, I know you have to go. As a former chef,
yeah,
or are you not a former chef because you're always a chef because you've got your papers and you're always a chef? As a
mm,
chef, I really enjoy your perspective on that show because from the research I've done and the things I've watched about the show, they really wanted to be authentic with all the back
mm,
of the house people.
yeah,
They were like, we need to make this real or else those people are going to kill us because we know they're
yeah,
rogues, right? So you've been at the back of the house, you
yes.
know it. Does it does it meet the standard of what it looks like in the back of the house of a kitchen?
All I'll say, the way I can say this because again, everyone would have had that spent any time in hospitality. Sorry, Cosmic, if you're still here, it was more wondering whether or not you've watched The Bear at all on Disney. I was drawing Cosmic Kid. Um, I will say that um, in the same way, I was frequently asked if I was like Gordon Ramsay when I was running kitchens. When I was teaching hospitality, that's the thing that all my kids want to know. They want to know, like, so I was teaching in high school. They're like, "Oh, so were you totally like Gordon Ramsay, like screaming and swearing?" And I said, "No, that wasn't me. That is not how I. That is not how I operated. That is not how I sort of treated people. I was never like that." Um, so in that same way, is like that was just my experience. So that's how I rolled. But I will tell you, there isn't a single thing in any of the episodes that I hadn't seen. Some of the things I experienced directly, as in I was right in the middle of that argument or that decision or that moment. Other times it was happening just right across the kitchen. But there was not a single thing in there where I thought to myself, me being triggered, yeah, Cosmic, check
Check
it.
it.
Yeah, yeah. Me being triggered, it's such a slow burn in a lot of ways too. Um, but I don't know, Cosmic, if you've ever worked in a kitchen, you've ever done like, your years in the hospitality business, there were just things always going on in the background that I felt like, man, this is a glimpse of what my life was, before I became a teacher. Absolutely. Um, the thing I want to mention about that one long episode is remarkable because it's about a kitchen, but not the kitchen, not the main kitchen in the story, right? Another thing too, I think I think that was one of the longer episodes. Like I think it was about an hour long. The other episodes kind of come in around 30-40 minutes. That one was a longer episode. So that feel and the ending of that episode, my God, like just when you think the episode's going to let you go, and that end, they always have such great moments. A lot of times, close up moments of somebody just having a feel at the end of like the episode, and yeah, it's good. It's like I said, I don't know what kept me from watching it, just time and scheduling. But I will say I told Karen, I'm like, I don't think I've ever had such connected feels for a show ever. A couple times Maddie walked in, she's like, "Is this a cooking show?" I'm like, "No, this is." She's like, "Is this a documentary?" I'm like, "No, this is an actual," because it kind of rings true, right? Like She thought I was just watching something on the Food Network.
Bro, you hit the nail on the head. Even halfway through the episode, my wife says, "Is this going to end soon?" She was worried that it was going to end without coming to a conclusion because
Karen had to leave the room. She's like,
oh,
I can't watch this anymore. It's too much. It's too much. And then I put pause. I'm like, okay, let's watch something else. But yeah.
I hit pause. I'm like, "No, it's only halfway through." I was eating up. I was eating up the learning about these characters. I so
Mhm.
was thirsty to learn more about who these people are and where their background, where they came from, what they're about. And to see the bear's mom and family and dysfunction, it was fucking opera in my head. Like I was loving it because it was
Mhm.
feeding that background information that I so desire. Why is this person who he is? How did he become this way? You know, like
Mhm.
a savant in the kitchen,
Mm.
but socially awkward a little bit, but in a lovable way. How does this happen? Well,
Mhm.
episode
You're
6
fine.
gave us a flavor.
Yeah, definitely. That's what I saw.
So
Front of
Cosmic,
house when
yeah. So
yeah.
that's I can totally see him front of the house with the with his southern hospitality, but
Yeah,
I could
yeah.
also see him at the back of the house.
Dude, Cosmic, there's a character in there for you. There's a need to come experience my Cajun Colombian what? Cajun Colombian kitchen for a crawfish boil. I'm down. I did that for my family one time. They were kind of mind blown. They didn't like when I poured it all out on the table, but they were down. They were down. I had the right sausage in there too, which helped. Cosmic, I'll tell you, there's a character in there for you as far as the front of the house. So, and I don't know if Chids, if you're there yet, if you know how that plays out, but
No,
there's a
I
character. Yeah, there's a character in there that um kind of like ups their front of the house game, and it's cool. It's cool. So
I think I know who it is, but I don't want to talk about it too much. Is it cousin? Crazy cousin, does he step up his game? Yeah. I can see within him there's a shift. He wants it just appears as though he wakes up one
he's
day
a
and he's like, I
hollow
need to
guy, eh? He's such a
yeah,
hollow guy craving something.
craving, but
And
he wants to fill it, right?
and feeling the feels of the loss, like really deeply feeling the feels of the loss. And again, Adonis don't want to do spoilers, but the show is based on the back of an event. It's firmly rooted in an event, and this event kind of like connects with many of the characters deeply. But the character cousin, it rocks him. It rocks him to like his core as far as what his purpose in this world is. And I'll just say his story gets interesting. It gets interesting. So well worth a watch.
Oh,
Who knew
bro,
we were gonna land there? Who knew?
no. And we're pulling here Jocko Willink podcast time. Joe Rogan, we're like at 1 hour and 57 minutes, which is crazy.
Well,
Um,
like I've always told you, Richard, we do it according to our rules.
I've been called Charles recently as well, so it's craziness. Cosmic's going to be messaging me on how to watch. He needs a
Yeah,
good show. I think you'll like it, Sean, for real. I think you'll like it.
yeah.
Um,
And you can catch up easy. They've got 2 seasons.
yeah,
First season, and like you're in for 20 episodes, and most of them float around the 30-40 minute mark. The one in question is an hour, but there's a reason it's an hour. There's a reason. So take deep breaths.
yeah. I've been rewatching season 1 as well, just to
Yep.
see the
I just
different
might.
things. Yeah.
I just might just to see what I notice.
Uh, Chris or Cliff. That's what
There we go.
mistaken for
Richard.
some Cliff, Richard, Charles, call me whatever you like. Um, it was a blast today. Thanks for a great episode as per usual. Cosmic and Rochelle and whoever else was able to come check us out. Thanks for spending your time with us. This was Decoded Podcast, Season 6, Episode 44, number 262. Until next time, peace.
Peace, y'all.